Hello, this is John Robert Bass. That's me on the left in 1950 next to my big brother Roy Jr. He's 2.5 years older than me. I tell you this because for the next 35 minutes, we're going to look at many photos of our family up to and including Roy's marriage to Betty, and I'm sure I'll refer to him as my brother and also make references to our parents and relatives, so you'll need to know just who this narrator is as we honor my brother for his 80th birthday, which was January the 3rd, 2025. Roy Dosson Bass Jr., beloved son, grandson, cousin, brother, husband, and father. Where did he come from? How, by the grace of God, did he get here to bless all of our lives? His parents were Roy Dosson Bass Sr. and Janie Estelle Wells. Roy Sr.'s parents were John William Bass and Clara Lillian Bounds, Big Daddy and Mama Bass. They lived on a farm near Rocky Mount, Louisiana, just north of Shreveport. They had 5 children. William Dalton was the oldest. Here he is with his wife, Lilla Mae DeMoss, and their 3 oldest children. Yvonne, remember her, we'll see her again in a few minutes. Imogene, and Bill in 1942. Youngest son Ken would be born a few years later. The second child was Georgia Lou. Here she is with her husband, Wayne Ford Sr., and their children, Wayne Jr. and Marcy. Little J.W., John William, was third, but sadly he died as a toddler and is buried by his parents at the Rocky Mount Cemetery. Fourth was Roy Sr., born November the 4th, 1918. Here he is in 1923 with sister Georgia Lou and little sister Clara Christine, who would be the 5th child. Here's Aunt Christine with her husband and son, Joe H. Coleman Sr., and Joe H. Coleman Jr. Roy Sr., about 7 years old. Here he is with the principal and the entire senior class of Rocky Mount High School in 1935. Janie's parents were Robert Homer Wells and May D. Word. May D. grew up in Monroe County, Mississippi, went to Peabody College in Nashville, and eventually answered a call for a school teacher in Longstreet, Louisiana. She boarded with the Wells family near Longstreet and married their son Homer. Check the marriage date on their tombstone. I've always loved that Homer and May D. were married on December 22nd, 1917, and Janie was born on September the 23rd, 1918, exactly 9 months and 1 day later. Homer immediately had to go in the Army. The United States had entered World War I. He sailed to Europe on this ship to fight in the trenches of France, where he was wounded. Over 116,000 Americans were killed there, but Homer returned to Longstreet to meet Janie in April of 1919 when she was 6 months old. This picture of Janie was made in Mississippi, possibly in 1924, at the first of what is now 100 Word Baker Crawford family reunions in Monroe County. Here's the Wells family in 1942 at the old place, a couple of miles outside of Longstreet, where Janie was born and grew up. Younger sister Doris on the left, Janie, then Bill, who had just graduated from Louisiana Tech and was going to Virginia Tech for a master's degree in chemical engineering. And 11-year-old Holly. Their parents are 51 years old when this picture was made. Roy and Janie met in the fall of 1937 as lab partners their senior year at Louisiana Normal College, which is now Northwestern State University at Natchitoches, Louisiana, which is about an hour south of Shreveport. They both went year-round to school and graduated in 3 years when they were only 20 years old and were teaching in high schools. Janie taught home economics at Grand Cane High School, about 7 miles from Longstreet. This is exactly what the high school in Longstreet looked like before it burned many years ago. Roy Sr. went home to Rocky Mount and taught chemistry and coached the boys' basketball team. They married in 1940 at the Longstreet Methodist Church. And look who is in the wedding. On the left is 14-year-old Doris. The first flower girl is a Wells cousin. The flower girl on the right is Yvonne Bass. Remember her? Dalton's oldest daughter and Ken's sister. In the middle is Grandpa Wells' youngest sister Edna, and on the right is 18-year-old Christine, Roy Sr.'s younger sister. The young couple came to Baton Rouge in 1944 as Roy Sr. began work on his master's degree in agricultural economics at LSU. While he was a student, Janie worked for Esso, Standard Oil, which is now Exxon. That would be her last job outside her home. When Dad finished work on his master's degree, he was hired by a man from Little Rock, Miles McPeak, to work for the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Well, enough history. Our star is born in Baton Rouge on January 3rd, 1945, and here are the earliest photos we have. First with his parents, and then with Grandmother Wells. You can see what a fat, healthy baby he is. Look at those legs. And check out this high-tech chair that converts from a high chair to a PlayStation. Roy Jr.'s first wheels. At the old place with Grandpa Wells, Uncle Bill, and Uncle Holly. One of my favorite pictures, wish it was clearer, Uncle Holly's horse Champ, who was always out at the old place when we were growing up. I'm not sure that's it, but the family car was a 1940 Ford that Dad bought before he married. Roy Jr. always loved being a farm boy. Great picture here with first cousin Ken Bass and his mother, Lilla Mae DeMoss, at Rocky Mount. I included this picture because it is a rare shot of Grandmother Wells smiling. That generation just didn't smile for pictures. Toward the end of 1946, the young Bass family moved to Montgomery, Alabama, and Dad began his 30-year career with the U.S. Department of Agriculture. They rented a garage apartment on Johnson Street, and Roy Jr. celebrated his second birthday. In June 1947, John Robert is born. Here we all are with a 1940 Ford, only to be completely outdone when Grandmother Wells and Aunt Doris come to Montgomery with Uncle Bill in his new Packard sedan. About this time, Grandpa and Grandmother Wells and Holly moved from the old place to this beloved home in town, where this picture was taken in the front yard. Aunt Doris was 21 years old, was finished at Louisiana Tech, and was working for Arkla Gas Company in Shreveport. Roy Jr.'s third birthday party in Montgomery. To the beach, Panama City, Florida, which is directly south of Montgomery. No sunscreen, We loved getting sunburned. Roy Jr. and Ken at Rocky Mount, and then with Ken's older brother, Bill, holding John Robert. Here's the 5th birthday picture taken in the backyard at our house on Bradley Drive after the short move from Johnson Street in Montgomery. Our 1948 Plymouth, front yard on Bradley Drive. Aunt Doris came to see us. Not sure whose tricycle I'm on. We only had one tricycle. With Dad in the backyard. Grandpa Wells drove a school bus in Longstreet when we were little. He was also a constable and had a pistol. Front yard at Longstreet. The house across the street has changed little for many years. 6 years old, and we have moved to Little Rock, renting a house on South Tyler Street, close to what is now UALR. It snowed, and we got the camera out. Remarkably, one of the houses in the background is 2306 South Tyler, where my wife Lynn and her family lived years later until she was 12. Easter at Longstreet. The lady in the middle is Aunt Lily, Grandmother Wells' older sister, who is visiting from Mississippi. That's where our Uncle Holly's name came from. Aunt Lily had married the president of the bank in Corinth, Mississippi, Mr. Holly. Love this picture with Uncle Holly. He would be 21 years old here. Another move. We are now living in Arlington, Virginia, as Dad was assigned a year to work in Washington, D.C. The apartment complex we lived in was huge, with many children. Virginia Gardens Apartments. Uncle Bill came to see us there. Later that summer, we went to Rocky Mount. Here's Roy Jr. with Dad, Mama Bass, and Big Daddy. Dad is 34. His parents are 63. On a horse at Longstreet with Uncle Holly's daughter, Diane, our first cousin in the Wells family. Back in Arlington, Cub Scout. Janie was the den mother. 8th birthday at Virginia Gardens. Roy Jr. in front of his school, Peyton Randolph Elementary, just a few blocks from our apartment. He went to the 2nd grade and 1 month of the 3rd grade before we moved back to Little Rock. The year we spent in Arlington was action-packed. Mother knew that we would only be there for 1 year and made sure to make the most of it. We went to the Capitol and saw the Senate in session, toured the White House, climbed the Washington Monument, went to the Lincoln and Jefferson memorials with the Japanese cherry blossoms, the Smithsonian, Mount Vernon, the National Zoo, Arlington National Cemetery. I can remember all of these things so well. At Rocky Mount, Big Daddy had 2 barns. On stilts at Longstreet with Laura, Diane's little sister, and Roy Jr. with his flutophone, the first musical instrument in our family. Family at Longstreet, and Sandy, our first dog, a Cocker Spaniel. In the fall of 1953, Dad earned a promotion at his work, and we moved back to Little Rock. Here is an office staff dinner picture with their spouses. On Roy and Janie's right is Miles McPeak and his wife Helen. Mr. McPeak is the man who hired Roy Sr. 8 years earlier at LSU. We rented another small 2-bedroom house at 6413 Hawthorne Road between the Heights and Kamak Village in Little Rock. That's me sitting in front of it on the fender of our 1953 Chevrolet. Ninth birthday cake in the backyard on Hawthorne Road. We built a 2-story fort with the help of our many friends in the neighborhood. Cub Scouts at Jefferson Elementary. Christmas at Longstreet. Roger McMillan, Aunt Doris's oldest, has joined his cousins. June the 8th, 1955, David Wells Bass joins our family. Note how thrilled Roy Jr. and John Robert are. They know their lives will never be the same again. Check out the Davy Crockett t-shirt, classic 1955 from the Disney movies. When Mother was pregnant with David, she and Dad asked me and Roy Jr. what name we would pick if she had a boy. I suggested Davy, so they came close. I don't remember if we had a girl's name picked out. The high-tech chair is still in use for David. Christmas at Longstreet, 1955. Roger, John Robert, David, Roy Jr., Diane, and Laura. It's the only cowboy hat I ever had. Roy Jr.'s English bicycle. He had gotten Christmas 1955. He wanted that bike so bad. On Christmas morning, he woke up very early. We shared a bed, and he immediately woke me up. He wanted me to get up, walk out in the hall, and peek into the living room to see if his new bike was out there by the Christmas tree. If it wasn't there, he explained, he wasn't going to get up. I peeked, and sure enough, it was there. I was as excited as he was. Not only was I happy for him to get the fancy new beautiful bicycle, but it meant I got his old bike, the 24-inch that we had been sharing for several years. Had to throw this picture in, one of my favorites. Bridge at Longstreet. Uncle Bill and Holly, Roy Sr., and Grandpa Wells. I have the card table and the chair Dad is sitting in. Ken and Roy Jr. at Rocky Mountain. They're 11 or 12 years old. Ken has moved to the farm with Big Daddy and Mama Bass, and that would be his home until he graduated from college. In the summer of 1956, after 3 great years in Little Rock, Dad was promoted again and transferred back to Montgomery, where he would be second in command at his office. Aunt Doris took us to the airport in Shreveport and took this picture as we boarded a 4-propeller Delta flight. It was wonderful. The stewardesses cooked a meal for us, and Roy Jr. and I got to go up into the cockpit with the pilots while we were flying over Mississippi. Dad met us at the airport of Montgomery, and once again we rented a 2-bedroom house, this time on Happiness Avenue in South Montgomery. Note the kitchen table behind our Boy Scout, classic 1940s. Donald got that table and chairs, and now David has it. This is Roy Jr.'s 6th grade class, 33 students at Floyd Elementary in Montgomery. That year, Mom and Dad built their first home on Montrose Avenue in East Montgomery. 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, and we had a window air conditioner in the den, our first. It was a great street, a long cul-de-sac. The house across the street backed up to a country club golf course, and there were woods nearby to play in with our many friends. It was the American dream fulfilled for so many that fought in World War II. We had good schools within walking distance and great teachers. Nearly everyone went to church. You didn't ask, do you go to church? You asked, where do you go to church? Nothing was more important to mine and Roy Jr.'s childhood than our church in Montgomery, Covenant Presbyterian. The values and relationships we made there have lasted a lifetime. Here's the Vacation Bible School picture made in 1959. There's Roy Jr. on the right. I'm there with the O on my Little League baseball cap. And on the back row, in the middle, is a pretty girl named Barbara Gilmore. She was a year younger than Roy Jr. She was going into the 7th grade and he into the 8th grade. That's when they started going together. They were boy and girlfriend for many years. Here's the Covenant Junior High Choir. That's 7th through 9th grade and the way it ought to be. That's me on the left with the ultra cool white shoes, Roy Jr. on the back row, and Barbara on the right. We'll come back to her later. I still keep up with several of the people in this picture. Another girl in Roy Jr.'s life was Charlotte Taylor, who lived next door to our grandparents in Longstreet. I don't think there was ever anything romantic in their relationship, but after the 7th grade, anytime we were in Longstreet, Roy Jr. was at Charlotte's. 7th grade picture. Christmas at Longstreet. Name the cousins from left to right. Donald, David, Roy Jr., Laura, John Robert, Roger, then Edna Jane standing on the right, Diane and Robert Word. Uncle Bill and his family lived in Toledo, Ohio, and didn't come home for Christmas. Yes, Donald, who came to us on August the 8th, 1957. August the 8th was Grandmother Wells' birthday, as well as Bailey Boyles, one of Roy Jr.'s granddaughters. How cool is that? 3 generations on August the 8th. By now, Roy Jr. has started spending his summers in Louisiana, mainly at Rocky Mount. He loved plowing the fields, which he started doing by himself in the 5th grade. Had to throw this one in. Too cute. 3-year-old David and Edna Jane McMillan, Aunt Doris's daughter. First cousins in 1958. 8th grade picture. We went to Capitol Heights Junior High, a beautiful school built in 1923. Here's Roy Jr. in his Capitol Heights band sweater. He played clarinet there for 3 years. In the fall of 1960, Roy Jr. began attending Robert E. Lee High School. Go Generals! They literally had the best high school marching band in the nation, winning that recognition in Miami the summer before his junior year. Lee had the state championship football team, but as many people came to the games to see the band perform at halftime as the football game. They were so exciting to watch. Precision marching and the sound. You just couldn't believe it. 11th grade picture. And by our 60 Chevy on Montrose Avenue in his senior year. Longstreet first cousins in 1962. In the fall of 1962, Dad was promoted to head the Statistical Crop Reporting Service in Arkansas for the U.S. Department of Agriculture. He had risen to the top. Dad moved to Little Rock in October and lived at the YMCA in downtown Little Rock, but we didn't move back to Little Rock until June because it was Roy Jr.'s senior year at Lee, and I had made the B team in basketball. My coach on the right is Pat Garner. He's a distant cousin on the Wells side. Sorry about the quality of this picture, but this is the only shot we have of Roy Jr. getting his diploma from Robert E. Lee High on Thursday night, May the 30th, 1963. The next day, we started our drive to Little Rock. All 6 of us in an unair-conditioned 60 Chevy. We spent that Friday night in Monroe County, Mississippi, and Captain William Baker Word's house, where Grandmother Wells was born in 1891, staying with Mother's Aunt Corinne. The next day, we arrived at 2514 North Fillmore in Little Rock, once more to rent a house, but this time it was a nice 3-bedroom, 2-bath house in the Heights in Little Rock. But it wasn't air conditioned. I would go to Hall High, go Warriors, for the 11th and 12th grades, while Roy Jr. enrolled at Arkansas A&M College in Monticello as a forestry major. There he met 2 brothers from the pine forest of Dallas County near Sparkman, Arkansas, Ed and Danny Givens. Whatever happened to Barbara Gilmore, you might ask? Well, let me tell you. She and Roy Jr. kept going together his freshman year while she finished at Lee. Then she went to Auburn University the next year, and they became engaged to be married. Sometime in Roy Jr.'s junior year at A&M, he and Barbara realized that they were just not right for each other and agreed to call off the engagement. Barbara later married Richard Morris, a Vietnam combat veteran who worked in the housing industry and also wrote several novels. They settled in Maryland near Washington, D.C. with their son and 2 daughters. Richard died a few years ago, but Barbara is in good health, living in a retirement community in Maryland. Charlotte Taylor McCauley lives in Murfreesboro, Arkansas. I will see her and her younger brother, C.A., who is my age, at the Longstreet Cemetery Workday, which is held every Mother's Day weekend. Our family in 1964 at Longstreet. In the spring of 1965, Mother was able to build her dream home at 17 Lyric Lane in Little Rock. She designed every inch of the house, and we moved in that summer. Roy Jr., David, and Donald. Roy Jr. at 17 Lyric Lane in 1967. And look who is with him, Ed and Danny Givens' little sister Betty. These are the first photos we have of Roy Jr. and Betty. Roy Jr.'s graduation from A&M, Grandmother Wells and Aunt Doris came up for it. Our pride and joy, the 53 Chevy with the fender skirts. Roy Jr. named her Betsy and kept her at the Givens home in the country for many years after her retirement. Grandpa and Grandmother Wells' 50th wedding anniversary in 1967 was a huge affair held in their home at Longstreet. From left to right, 12-year-old Edna Jane, Laura, Diane, Roy Jr., Uncle Mac, that's Doris's husband, Uncle Bill, Aunt Doris, Uncle Holly, Mother, John Robert, Roger, Dad, Robert Word, David Wells, and Donald. Uncle Bill and his family haven't been in many of these pictures. They were in Toledo, Ohio for several years, and then they were in Holland, where he worked for Gulf Oil. Here's his family in 1967. Sharon, Rick, Bill's wife Lois, who has just turned 100. She lives in Houston, Texas. Uncle Bill and Carol. When Roy Jr. graduated from A&M in 1967, the Vietnam War was raging. He would have been drafted and no doubt put in the infantry, so he voluntarily joined, agreeing to serve for 3 years active duty in the Transportation Corps of the U.S. Army. Basic training at Fort Bliss, Texas. There he is on the back row. They trained him in truck and heavy equipment maintenance at Fort Belvoir in Virginia, and then he got orders for Vietnam. The Miller family, who lived directly behind us on 17 Lyric, gave Roy Jr. a send-off party in their backyard right before he left for his year in Vietnam. Here's a Christmas card Mother sent to Roy Jr. while he was in Vietnam. Let's read it. The picture was taken at our grandparents' 50th anniversary. We pray that the light of God surround you, the love of God enfold you, the power of God protect you, the presence of God watch over you forever. Then on the back, December 68. This is Mother writing, "Darling, we love you and miss you so very much. May God watch over and protect you always, but especially until you are back at home with us again. Your Mother." Dave and Donald both wrote "The Great" by their signatures, as well as their height, weight, and grade in school. Only our dad would sign his whole name on a card to his son, and for whatever reason, all I did was sign my name. Around 17,000 Americans were killed in that year alone in Vietnam, but Roy Jr. was not one of them, returning to us safely in 1969, first to his family, then to Betty, and the altar. They had a beautiful wedding on June the 8th, 1969, David's 14th birthday. Dale and Louise Givens, finer people you'll never meet. Real quick, here's the wedding party. The ladies from left to right. The first lady is the pianist, then Rosemary Givens, Edna Jane McMillan, Geneva Givens, Barbara Abbott Givens, and her little sister, Peggy. The men, Gene Givens, Ken Bass. The preacher is Brother Carpenter, and then Ed and Danny Givens. Their marriage has produced these three awesome daughters, Terry, Wendy, Kimberly, and now their families. Terry, Clay, and Emily McMaster. Wendy, Kevin, Bailey, Kelsey, Macy, and Miley Boyles. Kimberly, Brock, Dosson, that's Dossyn, Hudson, and Brooks Wells, you heard me, Wells, McCorkle. I can't begin to tell you how proud my big brother would be of all of you. How sad he died so young and didn't get to see these beautiful, smart, athletic, and talented grandchildren. But as Pastor Mike Maddox said at Roy Jr.'s funeral, he's in heaven taking Jesus for a ride in his King Cab pickup truck. And I would add, he's with Amanda, and they're waiting for us with open arms, proclaiming Roy's great.